All right. So I said we were going to be moving on to trinomials today. So remember battle plan, we have now successfully completed 2 terms. You would know how to factorize anything to do with 2 terms. Now that we come to 3 terms, it gets a little bit more interesting. So first thing we need to do, always look for a common factor. Why do we take out the common factor? Where does the -1 come from? So the -1 is because I am subtracting 1 from either side of my equation. And I'm subtracting 1 because I've got a +2 and I want +1. So I'm subtracting 1 on both sides, and that's where it comes through. All right. Back to the battle plan. So now we start looking at 3 terms. Always take out a common factor, and the reason for taking out a common factor is because your values are then going to be smaller. So when you look for factors, you'll have fewer options that you'll have to try and wade through. Now, when I was in school, this was always called the butterfly method. And that's because it kind of looks a little bit like a butterfly, like floating across the screen that way. If you can't see it, then you have a very sad life. So step 1, find the factors of the coefficient of x squared and the factors of the constant term. All right, so here's your coefficient of the x squared. Here is your constant term. Now, factors of 2, we only have 2 factors. Those factors are 1 and 2. Factors of 5, you don't need to worry about the minus sign there. We're going to deal with that later. Again, there's only 2 factors, 1 and 5. Now, you might say, how do I know what order to put them in? Well, very easily, because there is only one order. And if you put them in an order and it doesn't work, it's the wrong order. All right. So we're going to list the factors. We're going to put the 2 there and the 1 there, because these are my 2 factors. I'm going to swap this order around just to show you what happens. So 1 and 5. Now, since in my original trinomial, there is a minus and a minus, that is this scenario over here, we are going to end up not with this. We're going to end up with 1 plus and 1 minus. Please change that if you're copying this down. Oh, that's where my mistake was. All right, quick correction. All right. Now, as we were trying to say, I will make sure that I never do an undo in PowerPoint ever again. All right, so we had listed the factors 2 and 1 and 1 and 5. Did your ship hit a load-shedding storm? You know what? I've got to give you absolutely top marks for that. Absolutely top marks. The mistake that I had here was actually not on that side. It was on this side. That is meant to be a plus. So please rather correct that, else there's going to have to be more corrections. And the reason that I know that is because if there is a plus at the end by the constant, we know that both brackets are going to be the same sign. And we know what sign they're even going to be. They're going to be this middle sign, both of them. And that's because a plus times a plus gives a plus, and a minus times a minus also will give a plus at the end. If we have a minus at the end, we're going to have 1 plus bracket and 1 minus bracket. So here we have 2 minuses. So it is actually this scenario, 1 plus 1 minus. Now we have to multiply these, cross multiply them, and then see how we can get this middle term. So 2 times 5 gives me 10. 1 times 1 gives me 1. And I need to now choose a plus or a minus sign that can give me an answer of -3, because that is my coefficient of x. Now you might say, all right, I can kind of follow what you're doing, but why the hell are we doing this? Well, you remember when you FOIL out, remember when you FOIL out these two brackets that you're factorizing in, you can get your firsts easy, that's these factors. You can get your lasts easy, that's those factors. But your outers and your inners is a bit of a problem. And that's actually these two calculations we're doing here. That's my outers, and that's my inners. So we need to try and get -3 from this. Is there a possible way? No, no, no. There is no possible way of getting -3 from a 1 and a 10. However, with the 2, the 1, the 5, and the 1, when we cross multiply them, 2 times 1 is 2, 1 times 5 is 5, and we need to get -3. So we can therefore see it needs to be -5 plus 2 gives me -3. And therefore that minus goes there, that plus goes there. That is my one bracket, and that is my other bracket. So therefore it's factorized into 2x minus 5 and x plus 1. So this, it might seem like a bit of a weird thing. Some of you might have already seen it. Some of you might be completely competent in it. Great. Some of you may never have seen this before. And to be honest, there are many, many, many ways to get the answers out of a quadratic. The most common, quadratic formula. However, there are some times when you need to be a little bit smart with quadratic formulas since they ask you to factorize. All right, but we are going to do just a few more examples of this. So I'm going to go to a new slide. All right. And I'm going to show you 4 different quadratics and how literally just the signs change how the factorization is going to happen. All right, now we have righted the ship, thank you. And we are totally ready. So, x squared plus 5x plus 6. X squared minus 5x plus 6. X squared plus 5x minus 6. X squared minus 5x minus 6. All right. You can see exactly the same examples. All that's different are the signs. So we know, because this coefficient here is a 1 in each of them, that when I factorize, it's going to be 1x and 1x. So great. I don't need to do anything more with that. X, 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 x. So let's test this one first. Factors of 6. So I'm going to write the factors of 6 at the bottom. Factors of 6, 1, 2, 3, and 6. But remember, we can't just use any combination. We have to use combinations that actually multiply to 6, else you are wasting your life. So either we can use 2 and 3, or we can use 1 and 6. Okay? I need to try and get a plus 5 out of these factors. Well, 2 and 3 can give me 5, or 1 and 6 can also give me 5. So now, how do I know? Well, because I have both pluses, according to my battle plan, which is this option here, both pluses means both pluses in my brackets. And that's because a plus at the end means the same sign, and the sign will be this one being both plus. So if I'm adding 2 numbers together to give me 5, it can't be 1 and 6. It has to be 2 and 3. All right. What about this one? Well, because there's a plus at the end, I know that both signs are going to be the same. They're going to be this sign, so minus, minus. I need to get a minus 5. So again, similar situation. a 2 and a 3. But stuff is going to change now that we come to the bottom two. Where this is a minus, that means that one bracket will be plus, one bracket will be minus. Well, I'm then going to have take something and then subtract it off. So I'm going to have to take my 6 and my 1 then to say that it's plus 6 minus 1 gives me my plus 5. All right. Now, you might be saying, I can understand these two, but once it comes to this, how the hell am I meant to know which order to do it in? Well, more importantly is there's another little trick, but this trick only works if this coefficient is 1. All right. And that trick is that this sign, just as it did over here, matters. This sign will always be on the bigger factor. So our factors in this trinomial here, this quadratic, the factors were 1 and 6. So this sign is going to go on the bigger factor, plus 6, and therefore minus 1. Similarly, if we have a look at the last one, because it's a minus, 1 is going to be a plus, 1 is going to be a minus. And then we are going to have to use again the 1s and 6s. But this sign over here is going to go on the bigger factor. So again, it's going to go on the 6, but now the minus is going to go on the 6. So therefore the plus must go on the 1. And minus 6 plus 1 gives me my minus 5 middle term. So once again, I say exactly the same numbers. All that's different were the signs, and each one of them came out at a different factorization. So that is why it is incredibly important for you to know your signs, know factors, and then be able to work with your factor pairs to then be able to factorize. That's pretty much it for today. I'm not going to leave you with stuff to do just yet because I want to do a bit more of this next week. And then once we're done with this, we can move on to grouping. Grouping will be one lesson. And once we're done with grouping, we can then move on to all the sections that you guys asked for. Because then I'll know that you guys can actually factorize. So when you come to questions that require it, you'll actually be able to do it, which is even better.